to Ed Kindall, who is the chairman of the Metropolitan Davidson County Board of Education. And let me continue our conversation from last time, before the break, Mr. Kindall. I think you were telling us the new additions to what has been the old traditional desegregation plan for the Metropolitan Davidson County area. Let's have you to talk about that plan and to talk about some of the other things later on. But let's start off by having you to give us some information about this new plan.
One of the things under the existing plan, it was designed primarily to deal strictly with the desegregation issue, with diversity and those kinds of issues. Under the modification plan, or the commitment to the future, we've taken a little different approach in trying to look at achievement as being the driving force. Obviously, we do not want to revert in any way to any kind of segregated school system, but we want to look at achievement as that driving force. That's why we have implemented, or we're talking about implementing, enhanced schools. This would place elementary schools within the inner city where you would have enhanced resources for the kids who live there. It would also obviously be open, kind of open schools for kids to come from other parts of the city, similar to our magnet school program. The middle school program, by placing those in a periphery that are equally accessible to the inner city of the black community, African-American community, and the white community, we believe makes more sense than the kind of situation we have now where we're busing kids across lines, even across zones. We're also talking about having what we call contiguous zones rather than the non-contiguous zones, where we can well define what a zone looks like, or a cluster. Therefore, parents would know when their kids enter school, the schools that they will go to throughout their career, 12-year career, and they would not have any doubt about that. And they would know also that they would only go to 3 schools. Now, as I said earlier, we have kids going to 4 and sometimes even 5 schools, depending on the particular zone that they live in. So we believe from an achievement standpoint of view that this certainly will have its benefits. The enhanced schools, the middle schools, and also we want to have dollars, money and resources for low achieving kids, wherever they may be, whatever color they may be, and from whatever background they may be, to follow them to the schools that they are zoned to. And those resources then be used by that school, and that school be held accountable for the achievement level of these kids to increase.
And so what we're saying is that people who often complain about money that has been spent on busing will now find that there will be less busing, but it won't be a cheaper operation, because the money that you're now directing from busing, you're now sending it back into the schools themselves under what you call your enhanced program.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy of it, but one thing I want to make clear, there are a lot of people who believe that we spend an enormous amount of money on busing for the purpose of desegregation. Only a very small portion of the transportation money, because we provide transportation by state law to any child who is 1.5 miles or more away from a school. In Davidson County, we provide transportation to elementary children if they're 1.25 miles away. So you will still have the need for transportation as we've always had. And if you really look at our budget, we only use only about 30% of our transportation budget it comes as a result of the desegregation plan. But the cost factor, you're quite right. It doesn't reduce the cost, because we're talking about improving things. And as I said earlier, we already are underfunded. So when you look at the total picture, there will be some cost elements involved.
You know, over the last couple of minutes that we have here, Mr. Kindall, let me at least bring up one of the most important subjects in recent discussion, and that has to do with the dropout question. I think that Doran Klausnitzer wrote an article indicating that Davidson County has a 35% dropout rate. Now, I think it is also admitted that this is a little better than it used to be, but it's still high. What are we doing in terms of a system to deal with the fact that so many of our young people, for whatever reason, decide not to continue their education?
Well, I think the new plan that we're talking about we're building into that some monitoring kinds of devices to ensure that we know where kids are. One of the things, counties around the state count students differently. You hear the 35%, but I think when you really look at it, it may not be quite that high. Obviously, any dropout rate, as far as we're concerned, is too high. We want 100% of the kids who start school to graduate and finish 12th grade. But they count them differently. In other words, if a kid is no longer there, he's counted as a dropout, even though they may be somewhere else in a particular school, out of state, out of county, that we're not familiar with. But so I would doubt that the dropout rate of kids in school, of some school, is that high. But we're working on that through putting together the computerized database that we can follow kids from the time they enter school to where they are, and also provide the tools for teachers to reach out, you know, to parents and let parents know where their kids are and whether they're coming to school, those kinds of things.
We've got 30 seconds for a final comment about the school system.
Well, I feel very positive about the direction we're going in. Obviously, there's still a lot of controversy. You will never satisfy everybody in Davidson County as relates to the metropolitan school system. I believe we have the best opportunity in Nashville, and I've seen a lot of other cities who've gone beyond the point that we are, and in my opinion have gone in the wrong direction. They've gone back to segregated school systems primarily. They've given up on their desegregation plan. I think we're
Mr.
headed in the right
Kindall,
direction.
and let me thank you for coming by and giving us that information. Let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.